Yeah. All right. Now there's about a minute left, so I'm going to hand present it to Ayu, and she can take it over whenever she feels like it.
Uh-oh, now we're in trouble.
Yeah.
All right.
You have like 30 seconds to type out the rest of your talk.
I know, right?
Go!
Good luck. All right. There we go. We full screen now?
I see Open Office, and I see your presentation. I see like little slides on the side.
Oh, okay.
It's not. Yeah, it's probably not handling the presentation.
Probably
mode
not, which is
thing.
fine. I'll just do it in Open Office then. You'll figure it out.
I mean, I've done it that way, so.
Yeah, don't look ahead. There's spoilers.
Oh no, just ignore the meme on the left. You can probably drag it to like make it smaller.
Oh no, I can totally hide it if I wanted to.
Oh yeah, that too. All right, it's all yours.
Yay. All right, so in the news this week, nestled behind all sorts of other articles, I found a really interesting event where some poor child got a birthday cake where he wanted the Maple Leafs logo on his cake, and he received this cake instead. Now, the title says that the mistake is obvious, but I'm sure for most of us it probably isn't. So let's actually have a look at what we should be seeing. Oh, no, I actually need to. Nope, it won't let me skip to the next slide. I shouldn't have hidden the thing. Guys, it's over. It's the worst. We're all over. I don't know how to skip slides. Does anyone else use Open Office? It's all over.
Whoa.
Anyway, not important. So essentially what happened is the Toronto Maple Leafs were his favorite sports team. And that's the logo on the right that he wanted. And on the left, you can see the cake that he actually got, which, as it turns out, is a logo for a company that produces sausages. So probably not the best birthday party one would want. And according to the news article, he actually cried through it. So not a great idea. So what happened? Why? We're talking about how to communicate correctly with your artists.
Does page down work?
Huh?
Page
down?
Page down.
No, it's doing this.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's weird, you guys. I should have used Google like everybody else. Huh?
I guess you have to bring up the spoiler thing on the side, maybe.
Yeah, I will have to. Let's see if I can bring it up again. No. I love that this is all getting recorded too. That's fine. This will do. This will do. All right. So hi. I'm gonna rewind a little bit. My name is Ayu. Some of the visual novels I've made are Realistair, Ripples, the Jisei Murder Mystery Series, and Backstage Pass. And in each one of these visual novels, I had to work with one or more artists on it while I was doing it. I am also an artist, a colorist technically, and I have done all sorts of work for other people, commissions and things like that. So this will be a very, very brief breakdown of the way I communicate with other artists and also the way I like clients to communicate with me when they're requesting artwork. How do you take something that's in your mind when you're not an artist and get an artist to actually create what you want? All right, so back to our Maple Leaf story. How did this happen in the first place? Well, if you read through the news article, you find this interesting line where the bakery said they didn't have a template for the logo, so the client suggested the bakery simply do a Google search for the image on their own. And already everyone sees the problem that is going on here, and it's actually something that was touched on in an earlier talk. When you're working with artists or any team members, you need to give references. So let's talk about what kind of references and things you need to bring to the party. All right, so for an upcoming game I have called Confectionarius, there's a character I want to include who's going to work in a bakery. So when I reach out to an artist, I start out with my own personal sketch of what I want the character to look like. Right now I hear you saying, but Ayu, you said this is for people who aren't artists. You clearly have drawn something. That's not fair. You're right. You don't actually have to draw your own character. It's one way that you can communicate. There are other ways to do it. For instance, pulling references of existing characters that have similar physical attributes. So there is a very specific body type I'm looking for, a very specific personality, and to an extent, a type of art style that I wanted. So I spent some time on Google looking for characters that I was interested in and saying, hey, kind of like this. You can see their type, their personality, stuff like that. No drawing on my point necessary. You can also pull photo references. In this case, because the character works in a bakery, here are some rough ideas of what I want her outfit to actually look like. At this point, the artist would compile all of that and take some of the other references I have to offer. For instance, her personality traits. You know, she's cheerful versus being, say, moody. Really obvious things like physical attributes, you know, color scheme, her build, the fact that she's an elf, and history as it relates to how she actually carries herself. So because she comes from a family of swordsmen, it's important that she has like a good posture instead of a really closed one. She carries herself with an air of confidence. All of that gets put together into a sketch and eventually a final piece. We have her in her sword fighting outfit and in her bakery outfit. And this is how I managed to communicate all the things I wanted with the artists. Now, if you remember the first slide, it doesn't look a whole lot like my initial drawing. And that's actually fine. Being okay-ish at art is actually a really interesting cheat that I'm about to show off. The stick figure cheat, which is for all the non-artists out there who want to communicate what they're getting across in a short amount of space. Stick figures are absolutely okay. To get an image like this that we have from Backstage Pass that Toya drew for us, it would be incredibly difficult for me to try to describe in words. Okay, we have one character in the back and then another one in front of them, but his arms are around them, and also there's a guitar, and this is happening. It is in fact much easier for me to simply sort of mock up the stick figures and things that I'm looking for. Other references I included for this one were a photo of the exact guitar that I wanted, and in some cases you can even include a photo snapped of yourself doing whatever action it is that you want. So in terms of visual references and text references, these are the easiest things to go for. All right, on top of references, now we have providing context, which is exceptionally important because you really want to elevate what's going on with your character and make sure it comes out. So the history of your character, cultural markers, personal quirks, so things that would, you know, have some sort of bearing on how they look, how they carry themselves, how they have to be in the images that are drawn. You don't need to include any context that has no bearing on the character's appearance. For example, even if they came from a big family, which might affect their personality, you don't actually have to list out the names and roles of the 20 other people in their family for the artist to know what you want them to draw. Situational context. So I sketched this up real quick yesterday. This is two ways that an artist can interpret a request to draw a character crying. What you need is situational context to explain to them what you want to happen. Is this character in a bad way that is emotionally important, or is it they're crying because they stubbed their toe and we want it to be very comedic overall? On top of that, you want to think about how the audience should feel. So for these two shots from Jisei, the first CG drawn by Dehi is something where you want the audience to be shocked, maybe scared, a little bit horrified by what is happening, whereas the second one has a very sort of warm, friendly, close sort of feeling to it. Now I could describe in very cold terms, hey, the first shot is a guy and there's blood, and the second shot is a girl and there's a rabbit, but by providing the context of what I want the audience to feel, that gives the artist some strong clues as to how to draw it. There's also context about how you're going to use the image in the end. For example, this Backstage Pass picture on the left is used as sort of a promotional image. So it's very bright, it's very eye-catching, and it tells a lot of story about the characters and what's going on so that people will be interested in it. The second one is a CG from inside the game. Devoid of the context of the game, the color palette doesn't feel as strong, it's not as eye-catching, and so it's less likely to sell the game. But within the context of the game, it plays up to the mood and emotion and makes the player feel much more intimate and inside the story. All right, so no matter how well you communicate, occasionally you're going to have to ask for things to change. The earlier, the better. Stay in contact, be concise, and if you need more references, send them out. So the earlier, the better. Let's say I've hired an artist to take the design I've done for Kulin and I want a quick little animation with it. So I'm gonna send them this, the reference image, her actual design, and then my sketch, which by the way, can actually be a stick figure for this part as well, of what I want the animation to be. And the artist sends me back this, which looks pretty good, but there's something I would prefer. I want just a slight change. So in the second image, you can see I've drawn a small red line on the character's face. At this point, since we're in the sketching stage, this is where all of these big changes need to take place. The reason for that being, if you wait any longer, the artist has drawn more images afterwards, the later on in the process that you ask for changes, the more work the artist is going to have to do, which means it's either going to be more money for you or you're just going to have to be okay with something that isn't the way you initially imagined it. So here's a quick rundown of another bit with Kulin I did. The artist sends a very brief sketch. I send back a version of the change that I want. The artist sends a new version, and this is actually what I want, so then the artist moves forward with that. All these changes need to be made much earlier on, otherwise it slows down the progress for everyone. Once you get to the coloring stage, there aren't a lot of changes you can make other than the actual color. In this case, that I wanted the hair to be a slightly paler color. At this point is when most of the changes need to be done. Afterwards, you're a little bit out of luck. So for this part, it's important to let the artist know ahead of time that you want to be involved in this process, that you want to see all the steps, because sometimes they don't. It's also equally important that you respond as quickly as possible. I know it's really overwhelming when you get tons of emails from tons of people, but ideally a 24-hour turnaround time to make sure that the process keeps going is going to be really good for you, and also because oftentimes the artist will get a little bit anxious waiting for your response and won't know whether or not they should keep going. Plus, if you have deadlines, you're giving them way less time to do it if you're not responding to them in a timely fashion. So with all these changes, eventually you compile all of it, you have the thing that you want in the end, and I believe we have time for Q&A. I have no idea, let me check. Yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit, probably
Just
one question.
barely, I'm so sorry.
It's cool. And so Ambish was asking, do you have any resources do you recommend for finding a pose or outfit references other than Google searches?
Oftentimes, if you're looking for outfits, a nice place to go is just find places that sell clothes and sort of go down the rabbit hole of clients or customers also like this. Because you'll find, if you find one item you like, you'll be able to find lots of other images as well. If you're talking about like historical things, look for costumers and Ren Fair folks who do things like that. And for a lot of people, including artists, if you can't find the exact pose you want, oftentimes you can just photograph yourself doing it, and that's super useful.